So yeah, I found this article talking about essentially leaks between cookie permissions that have currently been noticed in Europe and how that's kind of affecting advertisers' mindsets around programmatic ads and that kind of thing.
How does cookie consent impact your advertisers? This episode of Today in News Tech is made possible with audio articles by ourhometown.com. Today, we're highlighting a piece by Seb Joseph over at Digiday about recent anxieties over cookie consent among digital advertisers. The article, "A real issue here is around publisher trust, advertisers on alert as cookie consent concerns rise," speaks with advertising industry representatives about the precautions they're taking around cookie tracking. The implementation of the GDPR privacy law in Europe has led to increased scrutiny of how publishers are collecting data. They want to know if the audience targeting they're doing on publisher sites is using non-compliant cookies, and if so, how prevalent it is across the media they buy, said Joseph. Here are a few of our big takeaways. A recent audit has shown that many cookies being used to track users among the 1,000 biggest European publishers are doing so without consent. Publishers and advertisers are considering pulling cookies entirely if these consent leaks can't be brought under control. It is recommended to implement a consent management platform on a publication's site to ensure that cookies are being controlled and distributed in a way that ensures reader trust. Programmatic advertising is an ever-expanding industry, but these legal issues stand to stop that growth in its tracks. Because of this, Our Hometown developed its WordPress platform to be GDPR compliant and is constantly updating its policies around cookie tracking.
I got to be totally honest. I'm still learning and trying to understand what are the implications of.
Yeah, this is what's kind of sparked the big problem. And it's really interesting. The article kind of goes in depth on where these problems have come from. But essentially, a lot of it is a lot of advertisers are just doing cookie tracking, expecting to ask forgiveness instead of permission. That's all slipping through the cracks. There's also this really weird and kind of interesting case. Let me see if I can find it, of how these things are kind of getting through the cracks.
It's an ad network like Google AdSense, but not Google AdSense, some other ad network.
So this is kind of explaining how a lot of it is happening.
Great. Okay, great.
And so instead of the cookie directly tracking one thing, it's a chain of cookies tracking other cookies.
Let's just step back really quick. So like when you go to a publisher site,
yes,
if they are running, let's say one of these ad networks, the ad network puts a cookie on your browser in this case, but normally they're supposed to ask if it's okay.
Right.
So we ask at the bottom of all of our sites.
Yes.
But, okay. Some of these sites in Europe just aren't asking. They're just
some aren't asking, but some are asking, but the cookie they put on isn't a one-to-one cookie, I believe is the issue.
Right.
So that cookie is then creating other cookies that just expand exponentially. Yeah,
I just came across that, Tyler, and I wonder what brought that about. There were a couple of sites, 2 or 3 that I've seen recently that had 2 options: accept all cookies or accept only necessary. Has anybody else seen that?
I have a couple of times, yeah.
Essentially, one primary cookie could subsequently call upon hundreds of other cookies. So then they could like delete the original cookie and say, the cookies that we give when people visit our sites, that's not on your browser. There's just these other cookies.
Putting those 2 things together, it sounds like the reader thinks they're accepting just the basic cookie that seems to, make sense, but really what they're getting is a whole mess of cookies.
I think it's like a network of cookies, basically. Like you're opting in instead of to a website, to a whole network.
That's not playing nice.
What is the status of this? Like, there's been announcements from Google that they're going to end third-party cookies. And now I'm seeing when I download apps, the apps are asking me to give them first-party data. You can see that everyone's trying to get ready for this. But is there some kind of like end of life on cookies out there right now?
I mean, it's not necessarily mentioned here. This article is basically about the advertisers desperately trying to find a path forward that doesn't involve that.
Exactly. The end of cookies is a disaster for marketers, but it is, I think, a good thing for publishers.
Like the current system, it just sounds unsustainable.
That ties into the new iOS features.
Yes.
That are against tracking, and people are trying to figure out how to get around that. Tyler,
Right.
could you scroll back up to where it starts
Sure.
talking about the TCF, transparency and consent framework, which seems to be some sort of prototypical method of handling this stuff, which doesn't seem to be serving the users as well as it's intended to.
Right.
That framework itself is found to be breaching the GDPR, it's saying.
Yeah, I mean, this is definitely something we're really focused on. That's why we've got canned privacy policies for anyone that doesn't want to write their own. Also, you can bring your own in there, and we've got the whole pop-up at the bottom of the screen. Yeah, I think this just kind of plays right into this other question that I had. I had to get a new phone, so I had to download a bunch of apps, and I've just one after another, they're asking me to track activity across other companies' apps and websites. So are you guys seeing this, or is it maybe it's only when you download an app for the first time, so maybe you're not seeing it?
Yeah, I've gotten it. I think it's whenever I open an app the first time after an update, basically.
That's probably what I've been seeing too. Okay, so as I understand it, though, this is them getting ready. Peacock is NBC, and they're advertising on social media, but they're also publishers. So they can kind of come out of this okay if they start tracking their customers' data directly.
I see here there's very little explanation about what happens when you click allow.
It allows us to provide you with a more personalized ad experience. That's it. Yeah, it's nowhere near as detailed as our privacy policy.
Well, Terry mentioned when you have a cookie pop up, you can normally dig down into it if you don't just say accept all, and it'll have necessary ones for like feeding you embedded content and things like that. And then it also has personalized ones and all that you can just untick.
Right.
And this doesn't seem to offer that kind of granularity at all.
Maybe that'll come later, as there's more pushback. Right now, they're just trying to get it all. Carte blanche approval, just go out and collect all your data if you've downloaded this app. Once you download the app, then we're going to track you again across other apps and websites.
And they could be tying this into another video streaming app. You wouldn't even know. They could be tracking your Netflix viewing.
Yes, that's right. But I guess the difference comparing it to what we have now, there's just all the tech companies developed this technology and no one even understood what was going on. And at this point, they've got cookies on all of our browsers. So this is at least asking for approval. But yeah, it's the same idea as Google. They're just trying to take back what Google has claimed as their own, Google and Facebook. They came out onto the scene. They started tracking everyone. Now all publishers are realizing what has happened, what we've left on the table, and they're trying to pull it back. That's my impression. Any other comments on this, or how this could apply for local publishers? Right now, we don't have this in our app because a big part of our goals in 2022 are to do more personalized news, building on the related stories technology and make it even more personalized for each subscriber. So that's definitely first party data, and we're going to need people to opt into that. You make a good point. It's not well explained here. If we're going to do something like this, we should give a lot more resources to just explain why we're doing this. If they really understood what this was about, they would be okay with it. They would prefer a newspaper, their local newspaper, tracking them to Google, I would think.
Right. I think explaining how it's a case-by-case basis. I don't need my video streaming apps tracking what I'm doing, but there are other things where, I don't mind.
Well, in the experience of the related stories, we could specifically say we would like to track your activity on this one site, and then we can help personalize it. But we're not going to then use that data
to sell you ads.
Amazon ads to them.
I think we need to focus on how this is presented to the customer. And right now, what this says is, do you value your privacy or don't you? What you need to do is tell the customer, we value your privacy.
Right.
But we want to make this a better experience for you. Will you allow us to track the things that you like so that we can improve our service to you rather than on the privacy thing?
Yes.
Because if it has to do with my privacy, I'm not allowing anything.
I think what we would want to do is focus first on personalizing the content experience rather than the ads. Now, it's not like we have the inventory to personalize ads. We're not AdSense. And even if we were, there's not enough businesses in the local community to really allow you to personalize the ad experience. Allowing us to track you will provide you with a better editorial or content experience. We can send you more articles based on what you've read in the past and what we think you're interested in. And then it's a more personalized reading experience, not ad experience. I think you get a lot more people opting into that, as long as you didn't present it, in a very simplistic way, like you said, of either give up your privacy or don't.
Privacy isn't really the focus. We want
Right.
content and experience to be the focus.
Sure. Yeah.
Another point that would go back to the FTC article we did previously would be
right.
a very easy way to opt back out of anything.
Yes.
Right.
Very good. I think that's the consent management system, right, Tyler? Is that basically what that does? These things are moving very quickly. I mean, GDPR has been around for like 5 years now, but things have accelerated. They're starting to crack down on this stuff.
Somebody catch me up. The GDPR isn't in the United States yet, right?
Right. California has a law that is similar. It's basically for Europe, they're trying to protect users. Again, I think publishers are in a good position to take advantage of this because you're not selling this data to the advertisers. You're going to be using it to provide a better experience to paying subscribers.
Right. We have to turn the negative into a positive.
That's very easy in this case for the publishers we work with. Thanks for watching Today in News Tech, the podcast covering innovation in digital journalism. You can follow us on Facebook, Twitter, and subscribe on YouTube or any of your favorite podcast apps. We'll see you tomorrow.
At our hometown, we help newspapers build WordPress websites, design native apps, and develop digital subscription models. If you are interested in a free prototype of your publication on WordPress, go to ourhometown.com and click the Contact Us button.